right, everyone, for this assignment, you're going to need a few supplies. You're going to need to get a piece of paper. You're going to need to get a red marker, pencil, crayon, or something like that, and then get a blue one. So go ahead and pause the video and get those things. All right, so this is what your paper will look like in the end. You're going to have two columns, so just make sure you kind of leave room. So label your paper at the top with path of blood through the heart. Now we're going to start our track of blood going through the heart and the body by starting in the right atrium. Now when we write the word right atrium, we're going to go ahead and write that in blue because blood that is in the right atrium has very low amounts of oxygen. It's not really blue, but diagrams often show it as that way. It's more of a kind of a maroon or dark red color. Now from the right atrium, which is at the top of the heart, blood will be pumped to the bottom of the heart through the tricuspid valve. The tricuspid valve is an AV valve, which stands for atrioventricular, meaning that it's between atria and ventricles. And the job of this valve and all the other valves that we'll talk about is to ensure that blood is only flowing in one direction. So go ahead and draw a little arrow in, down. And the tricuspid valve also makes sure that blood will never flow in the other direction. So go ahead and draw an arrow up with that little cross through it to show that it should never do that. Now, once it passes through the tricuspid valve, blood is now in the right ventricle. So you can see an AV valve is between an atrium and a ventricle. From there, blood then has to be pumped out of the heart to the lungs. It will first as it passes out of the heart, it will pass out through the pulmonary valve, which is a semilunar valve. Its job also is to make sure blood only flows in one direction, so it will only allow blood to flow out toward the lungs and never back into the right ventricle. Once it flows out of the pulmonary valve, it goes into a very short blood vessel called the pulmonary trunk, which then splits into the pulmonary arteries, carrying blood out to the lungs. Now, once this blood reaches the lungs, we're going to switch colors because halfway through the blood traveling through the lungs, it becomes oxygenated. So we're going to represent that with the red color to show that it has lots of oxygen and all the carbon dioxide has been gotten rid of. Now, this oxygenated blood does need to go to the rest of the body, but in order to get to the rest of the body, it needs a lot of pressure behind it. So it first flows back to the heart through the pulmonary veins. Once it reaches the heart, it is now in the left atrium. So what we're going to do is start a second column up here. And you can already see there's going to be some similarities between these two columns. So in the left atrium, blood then has to travel through the bicuspid or mitral valve. Now, this valve has two names. Bicuspid is a descriptive name and the preferred name, but mitral valve is one that's been around for a long time, and so it suggested that we still teach that as the name of this, because some diseases will have the name mitral in them, indicating something's wrong with this valve. But this is an AV valve found between the left atrium and the left ventricle. I put this little lamb in here because it will help you remember that these all kind of go together. The left atrium is where the mitral or bicuspid, LAMB, is found. That might help you make sure you don't get it confused with the tricuspid. So the mitral valve is an AV valve between the atrium and ventricle. We're now at the left ventricle, which is the strongest part of the heart. This part of the heart now needs to pump this oxygenated blood all the way out to the rest of the body. So to get out of the heart, it flows through the aortic valve, which only allows the blood to travel in that one direction. And then it will be in the aorta, which is the largest blood vessel in the body. The aorta will go and blood will split off to go into your brain. Some of that blood from the aorta will go into your arms. Some will go into your intestinal tract. Some will go into your legs. But it all will eventually reach body cells. And as that blood travels through the capillaries, the very small blood vessels next to the body cells, the oxygen will be used. So once again, we'll switch color to show that as blood travels through the body cells, it becomes deoxygenated. And then the vena cava is the last part here. This is when all that blood that's been used by the body cells collects in the vena cava, and it then the vena cava delivers blood all the way back to the right atrium where we started. Now that you have your path of blood through the heart paper finished, take a picture of that and submit it at the assignment link on Canvas to get credit for this assignment.